Hi, it's Shayna. Thank you for checking out my video. I went into Lifeway the other day and purchased an ESV double column journaling Bible in original black. They are originally $37.99 at Lifeway, but they had them 30% off, so I ended up getting mine for $26.59. I'm excited to get into it, but I'm a little bit intimidated by the pages, so I wanted to go ahead and decorate the cover of it first. So I started out with a piece of canvas paper size 5.5 by 8.5. I ended up cutting it to 5.5 by 7 later on, and I used my favorite paints, Holbein Acryla Gouache, to create just an abstract piece that was bright and colorful. I also wanted to add some flowers to this cover, and I wanted them to match this painting as closely as possible. So I painted them with a fabric paint called Dye-Na-Flo. It comes in very bright colors and it's permanent when heat set. I am going to be using my three favorite colors, magenta, turquoise, and chartreuse. Here I am applying this Dye-Na-Flo with just a regular paintbrush. It's going to wash out of the brush, so don't worry about ruining your brush. You want to make sure to saturate the petals all the way through. What I like the most about Dye-Na-Flo is that instead of covering the petals and the fabric, it actually soaks into it. You could also use ink sprays if you wanted to. After I get the flowers colored just like I want them, I'm going to go ahead and get out my heat tool. My heat gun has two settings on it, a low setting and a high setting. I'm going to be using the lowest setting for these flowers to make sure that I don't melt the plastic components, because I'm actually going drying these flowers is a little bit tricky. You're going to want to make sure to be careful so you don't end up burning your fingers. When I had my flowers all the way dry, I got my painting out and set them on top of it and just kind of figured out the placement, figured out exactly where I wanted them. Then I got out my Bible and I marked a spot on the paper so I could cut it with my paper trimmer. When I was done trimming, I got out my crocodile corner rounder and I rounded the corners. Here I am using a pen to mark places to punch holes with my Roper Whitney Punch 5 Junior. I'm using a 3/32 punch, and then I'm going to take my paper and line it up and mark with a white gel pen on my cover and punch holes on the cover as well. And I did this so I can actually switch out my covers instead of having to stay with the one cover the whole time. So when I get done with this, I'm going to get my paper out and apply the flowers with a brad. I'm just taking out that very center core piece and I'm running a brad through, scoring a little spot, and I'm using scissors like an awl to make a hole to put the flower into the paper. So when that is all done, I'm going to use some gel super glue to apply some acrylic gems. I would normally use a hot glue gun to apply these gems, and I really wish I had because they didn't stay down very well, and I ended up having to glue them back down again after I repositioned my flowers. And here in just a second, you're going to see me too, and I'm going to have a bobby pin with a flat pad and a resin cabochon, and I'll use that same glue to glue that together so I can make a little bookmark. With that done, I'm going to get my brads back out and I'm going to attach this finished paper to the cover of my Bible. I had a little piece of paper left over from where I cut the cover, and so what I'm going to do next is round the corners of that paper. Then I'm going to flip it over and paint the back of it black. That way I'll be able to add some lettering. When I get done drying it with my heat gun, I'm going to punch a hole using a 9/32 hole punch, same on the same punch that I used earlier. And then I'm going to cut some ribbons and tie them to it. I ended up changing these ribbons out a little bit later on because I used too much of the ribbon with my other bookmarks. So I ended up adding some sorry ribbon to it. So that does change later on. So before I put this white ink down, I actually wrote this out with a pencil. And then I just went over it with this Signo white gel pen and just filled the letters, made them a little bit thick too. I also had several more of the resin cabochons, so I decided to go ahead and make a bunch of these up so I could share them with some of my friends and also maybe have a few left over to list in my Etsy shop. I really like these cabochons a lot. They're very bright and colorful and are just perfect for adding color to a project. I got them at Hobby Lobby and I believe they're Paper Studio. So now I'm going to be decorating the ribbon that came with my Bible, and I am using some, I believe it's 22 gauge wire and part of a toggle clasp, and I'm just wrapping that wire around to secure that clasp. And I'm going to add some charms to it, and I've got 3 keys here, and I like it because it symbolizes the keys that Jesus has to death, hell, and the grave. And later on, I actually add some vintage patina to it. But for right now, they're just going to look pretty plain and brass. And then I'm going to get some ribbon out. I'm going to do 2 of these. And what I'm using is some ribbon crimp ends, so I can add charms to these ribbons and make some bookmarks. And at some point here, I'm going to be playing around with a flower that I made out of some satin material, and I'll get a head pin and run it through the material and make a little loop and connect it to this green ribbon right here. And then I play around with some beads trying to figure out, exactly what I want on this. And then at some point I lost battery and my phone cut off, so I wasn't able to record anymore. Um, so you don't actually get to see me putting these 2 together. So a lot of what you see me playing with here, I end up not keeping. I kind of flip-flop between how I want this arranged. But sometimes when I'm working on an individual piece, I just really don't know until I get it put together what I want. So I know that I like that blue gem right there and I end up keeping it there. But I move things around because I don't like the way it sits in my book. Um, and I end up wanting that to dangle off of the bottom of it. So there I use some wire there to make an eyelet on either side of that to connect it. And and I use a lot of gems on there that the Swarovski bicones that I end up taking off later on because I just don't like the way they look. So here you see my bookmark with a story ribbon in it, and then there's the black and white ribbon with all the beads that I have dangling off of it. I added a couple more later on, but that's pretty much finished right there. This is the finished cover, a little close up, and then next you're going to see the top of my Bible with all the little dangly charms on it and the bookmarks. And also I've got another picture of it laying out just so you can kind of see how it looks in different positions. And I also have a picture too of where I added the vintage patina to the keys. I really, really like that a lot. I love that turquoise color. So thanks for hanging out with me. I really hope this inspires you to go and create in your journal, create in your Bible, to make a cover for your Bible, just to go do something fun with the Lord. And if you are looking to do a project and you don't really have a whole lot of inspiration, or if you're not able to access paints, I have a download for you. If you will look in the description box, you can see a Google Drive link to 4 different files, and you can download them and use them for personal use.